Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me. Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. Today's interview is special because of my guest. He's not only one of India's most accomplished actors, but also one of the most thoughtful. His mesmerizing performances on screen and stage are legendary. But what many people don't realize, he's also a profound thinker and he's made many thought-provoking statements on subjects. And what I'm going to do today is to discuss with him several issues in the news in the hope that I can draw him out and you get a chance to get to know him better. And if you haven't already guessed who I'm talking about, it's the one and only Naseeruddin Shah. Naseeruddin Shah, let's start with hate speech, which sadly is proliferating right across the country. Last week, the Supreme Court said that hate speech is, and I'm quoting, happening because the state is impotent, the state is powerless, the state doesn't act in time. Now, the state, of course, is the government, but also the governance system. Do you agree with the Supreme Court that the state and the government are to blame?
The government's silence on this issue is puzzling, and it obviously signifies silent assent. Also, another thing, Karan, that I was talking with Ravish Kumar some time ago, not in an interview, informally at a shoot where he happened to turn up and we got talking, and I have the greatest regard for him. But I disagreed with what he said. He said that the spewing of hatred is a new phenomenon. It was never there. It has suddenly sprouted overnight. I don't agree. I think it's always been there. It's always been embryonic. It's always been waiting to burst into bloom, and it finally has. Because I can recall in class 6 or 7 maybe, in school, a friend and I were leafing through a history book. I enjoyed looking at the pictures in the history books more than I enjoyed reading them. And we came across a portrait of Shivaji, the usual portrait, horseback, sword drawn, looking, giving the 1,000-yard stare. And this guy says, Shivaji, Samrat Maratha, he's going to fight with the Mussalmans, no? So I said, I don't know. He's looking pretty great on horseback. He obviously knew how to ride very well. He said, no. He's going to fight with the Mussalmans. He was always fighting with the Mussalmans. So I said, yeah, why? Because they're all bastards. Now this is 1960 or 61, class 6 or 7. And this boy, whose name I can still recall, saying a thing like this, which is obviously memetics at work. I don't think he'd been told as much by his parents, but this is the vocabulary he chose, and this is the opinion he had. I can recall hate stories about Hindus and Sikhs being told to us when we were children in our families, and I'm certain hate stories were told to Hindu and Sikh children about Muslims in their families. So all this has just gathered and it has burst forth, and the political dispensation has very, very wisely and very cunningly used it to their advantage. They have legitimized.
I was going to say, if I understand you correctly, you're saying that this sort of animosity to the other, Hindus for Muslims, Muslims for Sikhs, and Hindus, has been latent in us for generations. It's just that the present regime has given it encouragement and made it acceptable for people to voice in public.
Yes, they've legitimized it. Kunal Kamra once said on an interview that the kind of things that used to be said over a cup of over 4 drinks are now said over the morning cup of coffee. Now I'll add to that what used to be said over the morning cup of coffee is now being said aloud. It's being said over loudspeakers. It's being open threats are being issued. When we have union ministers talking like street thugs, we will hang them upside down. If I take action against such people, says a minister, leaving the sentence incomplete, it's obvious what he was going to say, that I will be accused of persecution and so on. But this kind of language is absolutely shocking. I don't think the political discourse in our country has been lower than it is now. I don't take these hysterical rantings about genocide and kill Muslims on sight and so on seriously at all, because barking dogs seldom bite. And if these people meant this, they would probably go ahead and do it. They wouldn't talk about it. The sad part is that this kind of thing is not checked. If you try to talk about peace and harmony, like Harsh Mandar or like Tista Setalvad, or look for justice, you get persecuted. Talk of hatred, talk of violence, and you're felicitated and garlanded.
Let me go back to the Supreme Court, because it went one step further on that day when they spoke out about hate speech. They said the moment religion is separated from politics, all of this will stop. And the truth is, since 2014, there's been a deliberate involvement of religion in politics. It's happened on the Hindutva front, but I could also argue it's happened on the Muslim, Jain, Sikh front as well. Do you agree that as a country, we need to firmly separate religion and politics?
I mean, that goes without saying. But the fact is that the combination of religion and politics has worked extremely well for the BJP. The absolute openness with which they declare their Hindu affiliations, the pride with which they would visit religious places, the pride with which they would wear the tilak or the saffron on their foreheads, or the golden garments or whatever. This is it's just wrong, and it's never happened before. And this has been done to not only win votes but to gain the respect of the people, because only politics and only power is not spiritual enough, let's say. It is not a high enough objective. So the attitude of I am the savior has to be brought in so that people submit to this. I'd like to read to you something, Karan, which Rajiv Bhargava has written in his book. It's about the what he calls directive respect. The hierarchical notion of directive respect has not disappeared from our society, as many had hoped, and continues to permeate social relationships. But disturbingly, just when we thought that this notion of respect is fading away from politics because of our anti-colonial struggle and equality-centered reform movements led by Jyoti Bau Phule, Mahatma Gandhi and B.R. Ambedkar, it appears to be raising its ugly head again. Revived here is the older, deeply hierarchical idea of respect as deference, which brooks no dissent, muffles voices, and demands unquestioning silence from all. It is also being used to elicit obedience to a supreme leader. The Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban said that any attack on his politics is a sign of disrespect for Hungary. The Turkish writer is Temel Kuran drew attention to similar demands by Turkish President Erdogan. When charged with rigging the polls, Erdogan claimed that this showed disrespect to the people of Turkey and their choice. This is more or less what's happening here. Any criticism of the government and its policies, any objective intellectual criticism is immediately branded as anti-national. And this whole anti-national and the enemy within Tukle gang, love jihad. I mean, don't these people realize how absurd they sound when they talk about it? Without a shred of evidence, without a shred of facts, without an iota of facts about love jihad or about the Tukle gang, they go on invoking these boasts when they mean absolutely nothing. I don't think there is a single Muslim in this country who wants to break up this country into parts. This is our country. If there is a Tukle gang in this country, it's this government.
Let me go back to what you said about Muslims, because this was something that the Supreme Court last week addressed itself to specifically. And the point the court made was more of a moral and a philosophical point about the impact of hate speech. I'm going to quote precisely what Justice Joseph said. He said, "The most important thing for a man is dignity. It's not wealth, it's not health. The most important thing is dignity." And then he added, if your dignity is completely demolished on a regular basis with statements like, go to Pakistan, then what will the outcome be? And he added, these are people who chose this country. They are like your brothers and sisters. And what Justice Joseph was saying is, think about what you're doing to people when you tell Indian citizens who are your brothers and sisters, go to Pakistan. When you, as an educated upper-class Muslim, hear thoughts, go to Pakistan, how do you feel? What does it make you think about your situation?
It makes me angry, and I find it ludicrous. When somebody told my brother to go to Pakistan, he said, I've already been there during 1971. So anybody who tells me to go to Pakistan, I tell them to go to Kailasa. You know, I receive many such invitations. I once actually received a ticket from Bombay to Colombo to Karachi, a fully refundable ticket, and it's just ludicrous. I don't understand. There are more Muslims in India than there are in the whole of Pakistan, and it naturally offends me. But I can't afford to start getting offended by every stupid statement I hear. I can't afford to go on nursing these resentments, because it's going to be bad for me to do that. I recently did a series about Akbar, the Mughal emperor, and I said in an interview that if all Mughals are bad, then why don't we demolish the Taj Mahal or demolish the Jama Masjid, demolish the Red Fort? These were built by traitors, right? So some gentlemen from Lucknow who call themselves doctors sent me a message saying, how dare you say Mughal? Why should the name of the Mughals be associated with the Taj Mahal or with the Red Fort? The Red Fort, firstly, was not built by Shah Jahan. It was built by a Rajput chieftain whose name I forget, and Shah Jahan conquered it. So I said, in that case, the Jama Masjid must have also been built by him. Because if you carbon date the two, I think they were built at the same time. Or even if they weren't, this Rajput chieftain allowed the Jama Masjid to be built bang in front of the Red Fort. So doesn't that tell you something? And why this obsession with the Mughals? Why not with the British? Shashi Tharoor Sahab has been extremely eloquent about the British in London. And he was never accused in that country of insulting the country and all this sort of thing. He talked objectively about what the British did to this country. So, wipe out British history as well. Why don't we do that? They looted this country more than the Mughals did. And why the Mughals? Weren't there the Mamluks? Weren't there the Tughlaqs? Weren't there the Lodhis, the Khiljis? Before them, wasn't there Balban? Wasn't there all these people? Wasn't there Mahmud of Ghazni? Talk about him. Talk about Nadir Shah. The trouble is they don't know these names. The Mughals are known the world over, And that is why this supposed animosity. And we are not all descendants of the Mughals, as as we are accused of being.
Let me at this point widen the conversation and pick up on that comparison you made with the West. In the West, people are very conscious of what they say as well as how they say it. No doubt there are lapses, but they are occasional and they are infrequent. In contrast, we in India do it all the time without hesitation, without regret. For instance, Modi called Sunanda Pashkar a 50 crore girlfriend. Digvijay Singh compared Arvind Kejriwal to Rakhi Sewant. Sushil Kumar Shinde told Jaya Bachchan in Parliament that ethnic violence is not a filmy subject, thus suggesting she should shut up. And Shushmita Sen has been called by trolls a gold digger when her name was associated with Lalit Modi. Why do Indians behave and speak in this thoughtless, crude, unbecoming way? We all do it. Why?
You could apply that to any aspect of life, Karan. And if you observe the traffic ethics, the ethics of driving in this country, you realize the thoughtlessness that we go through. Even now, during the pandemic, it was better. But now, again, as soon as you're getting off a plane, you have people shoving you from behind to get off. If a guy overtakes you, it's an ego problem. If you don't stop at a traffic light, that's a great thing. And it's become anti-national to even say that we don't obey traffic lights, and we should. It's this thoughtlessness. You would never let another person pass through the door before you. It's only happens in this country. You would just have very little consideration for the other in any aspect, whether it is eating first or whether it is getting inside a room first or anything. It's this lack of consideration seems to be a national characteristic, and of course, to say this makes you an enemy within, an anti-national. If you say that, if you criticize.
This lack of consideration suggests we're egotistical, self-centered, selfish, we only care about ourselves, we're even impolite. The little courtesies that the rest of the world observes, we deliberately flout and ignore.
Yes. It doesn't occur to us that it matters to somebody if you meet him in the morning and acknowledge his presence. It doesn't matter to us. We just rush past. And as somebody said, that Indians are always in a hurry. They never wait for the lights to turn green. They're always in a hurry, but they never get anywhere on time. And I think that's a very apt summing up of us. And we were the most compassionate people in the world. We were known for our compassion. We were known for our hospitality. It doesn't seem to exist any longer, and to even talk about it makes you an anti-national. If you criticize Hindi movies, you're unpatriotic. I mean, it's come to such a state where one hesitates to open one's mouth.
In fact, the Supreme Court said something that I'd like to put to you. They said, should there be some kind of restraint in the speech of people in India? Do you think we need a specific law targeting hate speech? If we can't restrain ourselves, if good manners, concern about others won't stop us bad-mouthing everything, do we need a law to specifically stop us?
There certainly must be such a law, but it's not being followed. I think what is required is action. What is required is a proactive participation by the leader to say that this will not do. But he's never said it. He probably never will say it. So I don't see what good passing laws will do. I mean, there was a time in India in my childhood when there were no traffic lights in the cities where I lived, in Ajmer and Meerut. It was absolutely fine. When traffic lights came in, nobody gave a damn about them. So it's something that we have to search for within ourselves. It's something we have to introspect about. Passing a law is not going to help until we ourselves feel that consideration and compassion is due to the other, not because we owe him something, not because we are scared of him. We will stop at a traffic light when it's said only if there's a cop standing there with a stick. If there's none, we'll go zipping through. So until there is introspection among ourselves, and how that's going to happen among so many millions, I have no clue.
This brings me yet again to what the Supreme Court said, because on that particular day, Justice Joseph spoke almost to the heart of the Indian people. I'm going to quote from him again. He said, "Tolerance is not just putting up with somebody, but accepting all people as fellow citizens." Would you agree with that one sentence? Justice Joseph has hit the nail on the head, because most of us, maybe a majority of us, don't accept Muslims, Dalits, tribals, just to name those three, as fellow citizens. We don't just keep them at a distance. We look down upon them. That citizenship, which guarantees equality, which guarantees fraternity, is missing in our relationship with a whole range of people.
We look down Muslims who are not educated, I think, and who are the lumpen element, are looked down upon. I don't think I'm looked down upon by my contemporaries, by my peers, but they're all halfway house kind of people. They would spout anti-Muslim stuff, but never when I'm around. They would have some sort of a regard for the fact that I belong to that dispensation. But I mean, it goes without saying that I agree totally with Justice Joseph. But what difference does that make? And I just guess that more people should take heed of what Justice Joseph said, and as I said earlier, introspect, and to see whether we really need to treat everybody as equal, whether we even need to treat animals as equal.
Let me ask you one more question before I change subjects. You talked earlier on about the leader letting this happen, not objecting, keeping silent. And we all know who the leader is. I'll voice it for the audience. We're talking about Narendra Modi, who is a leader like we haven't had for decades before.
Yeah.
But when there were calls for genocide in December 2021, he was conspicuous by his silence. Indeed, he allows his own party and his ministers to taunt Muslims by calling them Babar ki aulad, Abba Jan. He himself coined the phrase Shamshan Ghat versus Qabristan.
Yeah.
Has Mr. Modi, the advent of Mr. Modi's prime minister, given our demons freedom to come out and surface and take over? They were restrained earlier, now they are free.
Though he himself has used these epithets, including you can recognize rioters by their clothes and so on, but he's never issued a direct threat. And that's very clever of him, because he wants to be seen as moderate, but yet it's a wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of a stand that he has. You have to admire the way he has created this infallible image of himself. You have to admire the fact that he's a 24-hour politician. And you have to admire the fact that he has won over the majority of this country's population to his way of thinking. And he's not alone. He brought an army with him, all of whom speak the same language, or all of whom speak a more vicious language than he does. He can safely pose as the good guy, the man who meditates in a cave, the man who doesn't mean harm to anybody, the man who talks of sabka vikas and sabka prayas, but doesn't mean a word of it.
But has he also unleashed our demons? Has he made those hate sentiments that were latent but suppressed now come to the surface and get expressed?
By keeping silent, I think he has. By keeping silent, he has. And it has encouraged those who have never been castigated for making absurd, ridiculous speeches.
He's complicit by his silence.
That's what I think. And of course, I'm going to get lambasted by lots of people for saying this, but I don't care. But fact is that is the truth, and he should speak up. It is his responsibility to speak up. It is his duty to speak up. It is his job to protect all of us, no matter what religion we may belong to. Whether, yeah.
That's very, very clear. Let me come to another subject, because I said in that introduction, I want to touch with you on 2 or 3 issues in the news. Last week, at a seminar in Nagpur, the Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Thakur said, and I'm quoting him, India has everything that any developed nation in the world has. Now, that is so obviously not the case. How do you view this patently foolish boast that India has everything any developed nation in the world has?
Well, his posture gets slightly spoiled by him patting himself on the back all the time. It's incredible how the, don't these guys have any conscience? Don't they feel the need to tell the truth to the people? We talk of 10 trillion economy, and we talk of Vishwa Guru, and we talk of this and that, when basic facilities are lacking to the majority of the population. It is absurd. And Anurag Thakur has made several inflammatory statements and has never been brought to book for having done that. But it's also, India has everything, including the largest number of uneducated Muslims. And that is something strangely which doesn't seem to bother the Muslim intelligentsia. We don't have a Muslim leader, but then to lead the Muslims, we don't need a Muslim. We need somebody who can get our minds away from the petty questions of the length of so-and-so's skirt and why are girls wearing shorts and ripped jeans and all this kind of nonsense, and concentrate on the things that really matter, on the evolution of the Muslim community, the absorption of the Muslim community into the mainstream. Muslims complain, and it's also a fact that their percentage in the government services, in the police recruitments, and the army recruitments is going down. Well, what I say is, make yourselves that capable that you cannot be turned down. We can't go on lamenting the fact that this is being done to us, that is being done to us. Make yourselves good enough to not be sidelined. And that is something that the Muslim community is not doing. We're still hanging on to the word of the book. I mean, the furor that erupted at Nupur Sharma's statement. Why should attention be taken off a stupid statement like that, which is obviously said for political gains? Is your religion so weak? Is your faith so shaky that it'll get destroyed by a statement by a person who's using a quote from the Hadith to justify her hateful argument? Why should any notice be taken of her? Why should any notice be taken of these people who talk of kill the Muslims on the streets, sharpen your knives? Why does all this make front page news? It is only to keep a sense of scare among the Muslims, and we have to get over that.
And what you're saying to fellow Muslims is strengthen yourselves and make yourselves capable of not being discriminated against. You're also saying there's no reason why every Nupur Sharma's comment should be taken so seriously, because you are playing into the hands of those who want to frighten and keep you scared.
Right. Exactly. And it's working. And I'm being accused of being afraid when I make a statement about I'm concerned about my children who have no religion, because my wife is Hindu and I'm Muslim. When I say you are scared of living in India, I still get these messages. Are you still scared of living in India? Are you still, which is bloody nonsense. I'm not scared. I'm angry. I'm upset. I'm hurt.
Would anyone accuse an Indian of being scared of living in his own country without actually pointing out to that Indian, you're not welcome here? In other words, the onus is on those who accuse you of being scared, because their attitude is responsible for any alleged fright and scare you may have. They are the ones to blame.
They are the ones to blame, and they don't realize that there are many people who don't agree with them. There are many Hindus also who don't agree with them. It's not as if it's across the board that all Hindus hate all Muslims. It's definitely not the case. I still have friends who are loyalists to the BJP, who are still friends of mine, and we never go into the political area. We don't talk about it. But I can still feel the affection that these people have for me, despite our differing views.
Ironically, on the very day Mr. Thakur said India was as good as any other country in the West, our foreign minister, Jaishankar, lashed out at the West. He said, and I'm quoting him, the West has a bad habit of commenting on others. They somehow think it's some kind of God given right. And then he added, if they keep doing this, other people will also start commenting and they will not like it when it happens. And what he's talking about is criticism by Western politicians and perhaps more importantly by the Western media of developments in India. Is the West interfering in Indian matters, or are they holding up a mirror to show us the truth, to show us how we are perceived by the rest of the world?
I think that's the case. The latter is the case. They are trying to make us realize what we are doing to ourselves, what we are doing to our country, where we just cannot, as Rajiv Bhargav says, brook any criticism at all. And what Mr. Jaishankar is implying is, if we start off on you guys, then you won't like it. I don't see what's preventing him. If he genuinely feels a grievance against any particular country, why doesn't he air it? He's in an authoritative enough position. People listen to him. People regard him. He's very very eloquent, and he's very intelligent, and he knows how to put an argument across. So it's something that an enlightened person like him should not be saying. But he's saying it to gain brownie points. I think he has higher ambitions.
He's saying it to please his boss.
You said that, not me.
Finally, let's talk about his boss. The Prime Minister has taken to boasting that India is the mother of democracy. I won't contest that. That's the Prime Minister's claim. He said it most recently at President Biden's Summit of Democracies. As a citizen of India, I want to ask you, how real and meaningful is India's democracy? No doubt elections are held, no doubt governments change. But what about in between elections? What about those 5 years when there is no national voting? I'm talking about tolerance of people who are different, minorities, lesbians, gays, transgenders. I'm talking about free speech, independent institutions, the treatment of citizens by the police, by the CBI, by the Enforcement Directorate, the use of terror laws and sedition, and the need for an independent judiciary. On all those, in your eyes, are we a meaningful democracy, or do you think we fall pretty woefully short?
I would be accused of being an incurable pessimist if I said, no, we're not. But all the instances you have quoted are definitely designed to crush dissent of any kind. Even being of a different sexual orientation somehow seems to challenge the system. Having differing political views, of course, is blasphemy. So I don't think we can really boast about being a democracy unless all of us as citizens realize what our own responsibility to our country is, and realize that we are doing irreparable damage by othering a certain section of people, by spreading poison among your community, and encouraging violence, encouraging hatred, encouraging clamping down on anybody who disagrees with you. It's not very different from what happened during the emergency, where intellectuals were jailed, where people who opposed were jailed. Rahul Gandhi has come close to that himself. Let's see what comes of that. I don't want to talk about that, but it is, as somebody put it, an undeclared emergency. So Mr. Modi likes to sugarcoat everything. He wears a Teflon coat anyway. Nothing can hurt his image, it seems. And he and his team very cleverly shift the blame of what they are doing onto others. And that is a trick that seems to be working. The things they accuse their political opponents of is things which they themselves are actively doing. And it works. So, I mean, how can we boast of being the model democracy when we ourselves as citizens don't don't fulfill our own duties and fulfill our own responsibilities and realize what our contribution can be in a positive way.
Naseeruddin Shah, I want to thank you for speaking the truth to the audience. Equally importantly, if the government is listening, I want to thank you for speaking the truth to them. From someone who was born a Hindu to someone who was born a Muslim, with tomorrow in mind, happy Easter.
And the same to you, Karan, and the same to everybody who's listening.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm really grateful.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch The Interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.